Chapter 10 Mindfulness in Daily Life. Bhavana. We have come to the last day of our 6-day retreat. We have been practicing mindfulness meditation. Some prefer to call this mindfulness meditation insight meditation, which is the translation of the Pali word vipassana. It is important to understand another Pali word, bhavana, in order to understand mindfulness meditation. Bhavana means developing mental ability. Any method that develops our mental ability, enhancing our ability to cope with life, to enjoy life, to be peaceful, happy, and calm is called bhavana. There are many types of meditation. Some people meditate using various techniques that mainly emphasize acquiring concentration, which practically means not allowing your mind to wander, but to focus on one chosen object, maybe a mantra, breathing, a candle, a kind of reflection, chanting, gardening, or even golfing. People will use anything that makes the mind concentrated. Since they develop the mind in a certain way, they may be called bhavana. Mindfulness meditation. In mindfulness meditation, the emphasis is somewhat different. It's not about acquiring concentration only for the sake of it. Concentration is not everything that is required. There are many other factors that have to be developed together. It is vital that the uniqueness of mindfulness be seen in the context of the Noble Eightfold Path, also sometimes known as the middle path. The Noble Eightfold Path is a composition of the 8 factors, namely, right understanding, right attitude, right effort, right concentration, right mindfulness, right action, right speech, and right livelihood. This path is known as the middle path that transcends 2 extremes. The 2 extremes can be found in whatever unenlightened people does. The 2 extremes are diametrically opposed to each other, such as like and dislike, have and have not, eternalism and nihilism, self-indulgence and self-torture, indeterminism and predeterminism. Only by seeing the 2 extremes and abandoning them can the middle path be discovered. Mindfulness meditation is indeed a practice that is directly aimed at developing the first 5 factors to form the path. Here, each individual has to form the path for himself or herself. The word used by the Buddha is not merely mindfulness, but right mindfulness. Mindfulness is right only when it's developed with the other 7 factors. Mindfulness becomes a part of the path. At the point it has helped to develop the other 7 factors. Here, there are 2 kinds of mindfulness: intensive mindfulness and general mindfulness. The first one is developed in intensive meditation, while the latter is in normal working life. Today we are going to discuss how to develop general mindfulness in daily life. Right attitude. I have often emphasized in this course of meditation retreat that suffering is very much part of our life and it's very important to have the right attitude towards it. Let's take pain as an example. It's important to be aware of the fact that pain is common to all living beings. Pain that is being experienced may increase or decrease. This is suggested as anatta, the doctrine of non-self. Do not expect it to work one way, that is to decrease. Keep the mind open to both possibilities, be flexible with, and be prepared for either of the outcomes. This is the right attitude, which is relevant to the reality of life. Otherwise, we are not prepared for the worst in good times and forget to hope for the best in bad times. The nature of non-self, anatta, is the ultimate reality. This means we are not in ultimate control of pain. Things are the way they are not always the way we imagine them to be. For this reason, generally, the way things work for us is very unsatisfactory. To be unsatisfied and frustrated with things around us is called dukkha in Pali. There are three aspects of ultimate reality: impermanence, anicca, unsatisfactoriness, dukkha, and non-self or no creator, anatta. Our attitudes to life have to be based on life itself and not on abstract imagination of life. These three aspects make up the very characteristics of our daily world. Anything that we see when we go shopping or when we are at home, including all the objects we experience during meditation, has but these three characteristics. They encompass the nature of the whole universe. They are ultimate. Realistic view. When observing the pain, if we expect it to respond in a certain way, say to go away, then our mind is not open to the other half of reality. Consequently, as the pain increases, we start reacting with impatience or frustration. This is because we are not in touch with the whole of reality. Wrong attitude can make us suffer more. So to have the right attitude is very important. This kind of right attitude is what we call samadhi, right understanding. Right understanding of life in the context of change, in the context of unsatisfactoriness, in the context of non-self. This basic right understanding is very important in order to develop a realistic view of life. Otherwise, you can develop a pessimistic or optimistic view and not a realistic one. As a doctor, you can see that if you have a pessimistic view, you're not going to try your best to save a life. If you're too optimistic, then you're not going to be seriously taking any measure you should be taking. If someone suffers from a certain disease, to know that person is suffering from that disease, to know it correctly, this is the realistic view. Realistic view is safer than either the pessimistic or the optimistic view. The Buddha was a realist. He had a realistic view. He was neither optimist or pessimist. Intensive mindfulness is what we have been doing for the last 5 days, with 20, 30, 40 minutes and 1 hour sessions. You were determined to practice and develop mindfulness intensively. You pay attention to even a slight sound and a mild pain intensively. You're trying to develop unbroken mindfulness continuously. This is intensive mindfulness. We have retreats of 10 days, 1 week, 1 month, or a few months. Those are all intensive retreats. Intensive mindfulness is mainly for training. As a soldier under training, you learn how to put instruction into practice, use weapons, and respond to the situation. You study how to do certain things intensively. However, some of those methods you learn may not be directly useful in battle, but they provide basic knowledge and a good foundation based on which you act in battle. For someone who has never had any training in a camp, it would be very difficult to respond correctly in the front line. Therefore, for us, the purpose of intensive training such as this is to learn the techniques under the close supervision of a teacher. In intensive mindfulness meditation practice, when you walk, you're trying to be aware of each movement. First, the physical movement, later, the intention and sensation. This is the way the mind functions. What we do is try to be aware of the functions of the mind. We have concerned ourselves with establishing mindfulness sati rather than concentration samadhi, because as far as I understand it, in Vipassana meditation, sati, mindfulness, is the basis and also the leading factor. Only with the help of mindfulness, we will be able to see what we do not have and what we have. Say, when our posture slumps forward, we detect it because of awareness. Otherwise, our posture would be slumped the whole day. We would not be aware of it. We also discover with mindfulness that we react to things in a certain way. Mindfulness helps us discover that. When pain comes, we feel agitated, frustrated. We learn about these reactions with the help of mindfulness. We also learn that we do not act. Sometimes we do not react. We learn about something which is there, which is not there. The presence of something, the absence of something. We will be able to apply our effort only when we discover both the presence and absence of something. Mindfulness needs to be understood in the context of right effort, which is about applying effort when and where is necessary. However, intensive mindfulness meditation is not practical all the time in working life. When you drive a car, you cannot be intensively noting, registering all of your movements or your thoughts. Just as the purpose of putting a soldier in the training is not confine him to the camp, but to equip him with the practical knowledge to face battlefield. General mindfulness. Let's talk about general mindfulness now, which is also known as daily awareness. General mindfulness is what you practice in daily life, at work, at home, when you drive, when you play golf, or when you go shopping. This is the ultimate aim of establishing intensive awareness. In the case of successful meditators such as an arahant, mindfulness is ever present in daily activities. For them, they do not need to sit to develop mindfulness intensively, although sometimes they do some kind of intensive session to increase a certain ability such as concentration or a certain calmness and peace. Now people ask me, how can you do this? If you have to know lifting, forwarding, placing, how will you cross the road? If you have to register seeing, how will you drive a car? If you just have to note hearing, how can you speak to someone? These are practical questions. To answer this question, it's necessary to know about general mindfulness. Indeed, unless and until we know about general mindfulness. Let's talk about general mindfulness, also known as daily awareness. General mindfulness is what you practice in daily life, at work, at home, when you drive, when you play golf, or when you go shopping. This is the ultimate aim of establishing intensive mindfulness. In the case of successful meditators such as Arahant, mindfulness is ever present in daily activities. For them, they do not need to sit to develop mindfulness intensively. Although sometimes they do that to increase a certain ability such as concentration or a certain calmness and peace. Often, people ask me, how can you do this if you have to register lifting, forward, placing? How will you cross the road? If you have to note all the time, seeing, how will you drive? If you have to register hearing all the time, how can you speak to someone? These are all practical questions. To answer them, it's necessary to know about general mindfulness. Indeed, unless and until we know about general mindfulness, our life is not going to really benefit from mindfulness practice. Just one awareness. Just have one awareness when you cross the road. Develop the awareness that you are crossing the road. When you are walking, you will not be noting lifting, forward, and placing in the middle of the road. Before you go into the kitchen, you bring one awareness to your mind, go into the kitchen. You do not need to do the naming exercise. However, trying to produce direct awareness of what you're doing without saying anything mentally. We do naming, labeling in intensive practice only. Naming will come to an end at a certain level even in intensive practice. This is for those who use labeling technique. It is just like using a raft to cross a river. Once you're on the other side, you do not need the raft or the boat anymore. Naming or labeling is just a raft. The technique is just a raft used to cross the other side. When you're going to work, bring about one awareness in the mind, going to work. When you're going to drive, just one awareness, going to drive. In case you have to drive continuously for a few hours, often bring in an awareness that you are behind the wheel. You come to a traffic jam, there should be one awareness, traffic jam. Make yourself aware of it as soon as possible. If you do not have that awareness, you may forget that you are sharing the road with other people. If you want to go quickly, you may want other vehicles out of your way so unreasonably that you create agitation in yourself. So when you are behind the wheel, have just one awareness, you are behind the wheel. You go to the supermarket and have picked up many things. In front of you is a long queue. Return one awareness, a long queue. This will sustain your ability to be patient. Otherwise, you will be standing in the queue feeling miserable. We spend many years of our lives in anxiety, worry, frustration, and fear. How nice it would be if we could reduce these negative emotions that take away our ability to enjoy life. we will then have more good things and more good times. You go to work as a doctor and see many patients in the surgery, in the clinic, in the hospital. You allow yourself to make conscious awareness by observing many patients. Otherwise, you will come under pressure unconsciously. This will cause your work stress. If you have to finish your work by lunchtime, but more patients keep coming, the pressure will keep building up. Suppose you have 45 minutes to finish your meal and clear the kitchen. Please pay one awareness to the period time, which is likely to create pressure. Pay one attention to what you have to do, such as warming up food in the microwave, taking the correct plates out, to cleaning them up after eating. This will give you awareness of the overall situation in the kitchen and dining room. Such awareness gives you some realistic undertaking for 45 minutes. It prevents you from being too ambitious and helps you relieve some pressure of time. It helps you to plan and execute your daily routine. Otherwise, time can create a lot of pressure so that you would not enjoy the meal. You would not finish washing or cleaning. Do not forget your primary object when under pressure. Breathing in and out. This suggests that you should be aware of taking some regular breaths while working if work pressure is mounting. The primary object, breathing, always helps you not to be overwhelmed by secondary objects such as stress and agitation, and it helps you to maintain your calm and peace at work. Just be aware of the time and situation in which you are. For example, you go into your office. Someone comes to work with a disturbed mind, maybe having had some problem at home. You're not sure what he has been through for the last few hours. What you should do is to be aware of the fact that you're in the office with others, that you are not at home, where things are at your disposal. It's a different environment. This prepares you to face something uncertain. You would not take things for granted as you do at home. If you see someone speaking very impolitely or in a stressful manner, you have to observe him as being stressful. Introverted and extroverted mindfulness. Here, meditation can be split into two: introspective ajata and extroverted bahita mindfulness. In introspective mindfulness, you register your own movements, emotions, thoughts, and feelings. It is an inner directed attentiveness. However, in extroverted mindfulness, you register objects outside you. If you're aware that your office colleague is depressed, you're not going to take offense at what he says or how he behaves. Otherwise, you are in a vulnerable situation, taking everything on a personal level. Yesterday, we discussed that mindfulness serves as a protection. If mindful, you will be protected from the bad consequences of having problems, arguments, and being upset. If you have to work with someone who has a short temper in the office, then you should go to the office with one awareness that you are with that kind of person at work. Then you're in a better position to cope with things, to protect yourself emotionally. Otherwise, you can get upset very easily and react endlessly towards what he does and what he says. This kind of mindfulness is called extroverted mindfulness in daily life. Live in the present. When the weather is cold, if we are aware that it's winter, we can enjoy it rather than complain about it. During winter, it's supposed to be cold. It's natural. Instead of complaining about the cold, we should learn how to live with it and enjoy it. There's no point in complaining about the cold during winter in England. We cannot change it. This is the way it is. During summer, of course, it's warm. But in summer, people say it's too hot, it's too warm, it's terrible. They are unable to accept things as they are. There's no end to their complaining and frustration. We tell ourselves to live in the present, but when summer comes, we long for winter. In the winter, we look forward to having summer. It's always unsatisfactory. We can never be satisfied with what we have and with the situation we are in. Life could always be miserable because of the lack of right attitude and awareness. Whenever we think of the past, it sounds better than what we have now. Well, our golden past exists only in memory. This is because we forget many situations surrounding the reality of the past. We keep remembering only what we want. It's not that the past is more pleasant than the present in general. Actually, in Buddhism, the past and future exist only in perception, not in reality. The future never comes and the past exists only in memory. It is only a concept. It's just like morning and evening that are concepts and exist in relation to the movement of the earth. Concepts are developed based on existence of other things. There's a concept of space in this room, but this concept exists only when depending on the existence of walls from different directions. Space does not exist alone, independently. But the walls do and are not a concept. In the same way, time does not exist alone. Past, present, future, morning, evening, and so on are related reality. There is a concept of morning or evening because there is a movement on the earth, something real to depend on, to develop a concept. Nevertheless, awareness of time is very important. To be aware of the place you are in, the environment, the people around you, the pressure, and the time are all very important. Without abandoning the use of conventional reality, such as concept and words, we have to try to realize the objective nature, the ultimate reality. So just have one awareness before you do something. This means you will not take things for granted anymore. You will not follow your habitual way of doing things. You insert one awareness at a time. This is for people practicing general awareness in daily life. If things are difficult, then be aware that you are going through a tough time. Do not forget to hope for the best while facing the worst. Only then will you be in a better position to cope with things. General mindfulness is assisted and sustained by a regular practice of intensive mindfulness. Therefore, it is important to adopt a regular intensive meditation practice as a way of life in order to introduce and sustain general mindfulness in daily life.